Welcome to the Critical Cinema Club. I'm Colm.
I'm Sean.
And you might recall that we previously discussed Star Trek on a subject that is quite close to our hearts. So we thought we'd go one step further, unfortunately, and discuss Star Wars. I just want to start this one with a question to you, Sean. What is your thoughts on Star Wars as it is now?
It's in a right sorry state, sorry to say, a bit like Star Trek. Last week we said Star Trek was dead. I don't think Star Wars is dead, but I think it's the writing's on the wall. The life support machine has been monitored closely. I think it's been circling the drain, if we're going to keep this metaphor going, for a couple of years now. I think since the Rise of Skywalker, it's been in a really sad state. So Book of Boba Fett, I think there's been a couple of other shows, and it feels like it's been a little bit aimless. And I think Andor coming along has made me sit up and go, oh, well, there is still something to Star Wars. But I think at the moment, it's got a real identity crisis, because we've talked about it before, where you've got shows like Andor and The Acolyte coming out in the same year. And they are so worlds removed, if you pardon the pun, that it's hard to sort of reconcile that they both belong to the same cinematic universe. And I think that does not bode well when you've got, like in MCU, you can see the same DNA through everything that they do, but I don't see that with Star Wars at the moment. I think that's a real problem, and unless they sort it out, I think they could go the way of Star Trek.
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with that. I think that since Disney acquired Star Wars, you've got people in charge like Kathleen Kennedy, for instance, who has her claws well and truly into this franchise, and I don't think she knows what she wants to do with it. You know, from a franchise overall, I just don't think they're delivering for the fans. I'm sure somebody likes The Acolyte, but I don't.
No, I absolutely hated it. And I think Kathleen Kennedy, or whoever's in charge of making these big decisions, really ought to never work in showbiz ever again, because, and that sounds really harsh, and I'm sure they're really good behind the scenes at all the things that they do, but it was criminal, really, how the trilogy, going from The Force Awakens through to what was the second one called? I'm sorry, The Last Jedi. I'm sorry, and then you've got The Rise of Skywalker. Each of those three films are so different from each other, and I feel like we're going back, 6+ years now, I guess 5-6 years from Rise of Skywalker, and that's when I was starting to get really worried, because The Last Jedi was pants, and then The Rise of Skywalker, but they were so different from one another. How can the same people be in charge of all three films? I mean, there's only 1, 2, 3 films. How do you get it so wrong between each one? So number 2 looked like it belonged to a different trilogy, from a parallel universe. It was a number 2. But do you know what I mean? It felt like it was chopped in from a different trilogy, and they absolutely wasted those legacy characters on purpose. There's got to. I mean, there's no explanation. They had such a wealth of material to draw from with the expanded universe, in the books. Again, I've said it a few times, but I think they've just been throwing loads of stuff at the wall to see what sticks, and only a couple have.
I think they've just been swinging that cat and hitting that against the wall, haven't they? Whilst trying to milk it.
Yeah, milking the dead cat.
Go watch the Star Trek video if you want to know what we mean by that.
Yeah, that was a good one. The amount of money they paid for the IP, and this must be George Lucas's worst nightmare. This must be what he thought was possible that they might do, because at least when he was there was a common thread. Sometimes the quality was up, sometimes it was down, but it was definitely, there was a vision there. But now it's from one sort of, if you go from The Mandalorian through to Skeleton Crew to Andor aside, it seems to have got progressively worse. I think one of the real sort of moments when I realised there was a lot of trouble, the Book of Boba Fett, when you had those kids on the scooters going for the market, that I sat there and thought, what are they doing? And it screamed to me like there's people making the show running completely unchecked, because someone somewhere's got to say, hang on, that's ridiculous. There is nothing like that on Tatooine. Never has been. It goes completely against A New Hope and the sort of Tatooine we had in our minds. I'm sorry. I feel like they keep chucking stuff in there and hoping something gets popular, and then they'll make a show out of that. And that's why when you have franchises ruled by committee, like I think Star Wars is at the moment, that's when you start running into huge problems.
I think that's a really good point, because for me, since The Mandalorian, each series has felt like a pilot for the next series. Mandalorian was the very first ever televised live action Star Wars that we've ever had. I know we've had TV movies with the Caravan of Courage and Ewoks Fight for Endor, or Battle for Endor, whatever it was called, and they were shocking. The fact that they started off strongly, and The Mandalorian was, that first series was everything that I kind of wanted it to be, where you've got this bounty hunter and each episode is its own mini story, and there's an overarching story with Grogu, or Baby Yoda as everybody was calling him at that point. And it was intriguing that something was teased in every episode, but each episode kind of stood up by itself. You for the majority of it, you can watch one episode out of sync with the other ones, and it wouldn't affected the series. And I quite like that they went that route with it, and it was more episodic. And then you've got Book of Boba Fett that came in, and you had one episode of the Book of Boba Fett where it was The Mandalorian. It was just one episode dedicated to The Mandalorian, and that was a tease for Series 3 of The Mandalorian. And it was just like, I understand they're trying to tie these things together, but what these series ended up doing was kind of making the universe feel a lot smaller, because it was still revolving around the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a vast universe, a wealth of stories out there that you can tell. As you mentioned, the extended universe novels. There's so many good novels out there that they could have picked something up out of that, and they could have run with that, and they could have made something brilliant with it all. But you end up getting Ahsoka, which I thought was just really, really poor. Ahsoka was a sequel to Star Wars Rebels. So unless you'd watched Star Wars Rebels, you didn't really understand an awful lot what was going on in Ahsoka, in my opinion. I did watch Star Wars Rebels, and I did like it, but that was a Lucas era show, if I'm mistaken. If I'm wrong about that, someone please correct me. But I know that they came back to do the Clone Wars animated series for the final season, because that got cancelled, and then Disney decided, right, we'll put that out there. And that again was very good. That final series of that was really good. But it seems to me, if you're going to start off, where did the issues begin with? I think I can't remember which came first. Was it The Last Jedi or Solo, a Star Wars story? I think it might have been The Last Jedi, because those two films, they came out quite close to each other. I think you had Last Jedi that came out at Christmas. Solo came out around March, maybe slightly later in the year, but it wasn't that long between the two. And Solo just did so badly financially, and there were cracks showing there from that film, where they Kathleen Kennedy sacked off Lord and Miller, and she ended up bringing in Ron Howard, who for me was a safe bet, but it didn't feel like a Ron Howard film. If you look at his filmography, Willow aside, hasn't really done an awful lot along those lines. Although Willow was a great film, but let's not talk about the Willow series, which I don't actually believe is on Disney Plus. I think they got rid of that.
I mean, it's funny that I had completely forgotten about Solo and Ahsoka. They were so forgettable. Solo, I think, Lord and Miller, I feel like they're getting a bad rep, because it feels like everything they work on, they're overrun, over budget everything. And I think Ron Howard was just a safe pair of hands, I think, to bring in and get a job done. I'm a bit more of a casual Star Wars fan than you are. I think you are a proper Star Wars fan. I really like it, and I'll watch everything that comes out, but I'm sort of, I don't own a lot.
You can see my Millennium Falcon and the other ships in the background.
I will speak for an engaged / casual fan, where I saw Solo coming out, and there was just, for me personally, no appetite for it, because I feel like Han Solo's story had been wrapped up nicely in previous films, and I don't really care because I think his arc only started in A New Hope, the arc that we should be interested in. That's been done and dusted through that first trilogy. What he was before, I think, is inconsequential, and I don't know that people care. Personally, it's just my view. I'm sure people think differently. But on top of that, you've got the one and only Harrison Ford, who is Han Solo. As much as Mark Hamill is Luke, you cannot replace these characters, and it'd be like doing a young Iron Man without Robert Downey Jr. It just,
Captain Kirk without William Shatner.
Well, that was our last chat, wasn't it? It just that is a very good example, actually. So Harrison Ford is to Han Solo as William Shatner is to Kirk, and I just don't think people care what younger versions of those people were like without those actors in place. I can't barely remember anything that happened in the film. He meets Chewie. What actually happened in that film?
There's a heist. He gets captured. He meets Chewie and speaks like Chewbacca to him. And I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. What else happened?
Khaleesi's in it.
Darth Maul turned up in a cameo right at the very end, and nothing was ever done with that going forwards, which was just the most pointless thing ever.
Because that's where I have a problem with that sometimes, because whether he comes in again later or not in other series and things, I don't think it's fair to do that to a cinema audience, because of the vast majority of people going probably not aware of Darth Maul. Because am I right in thinking Darth Maul's been in it sort of after that moment, but in Rebels and things?
I think with Rebels was set, is it 5 years before the Battle of Yavin? Spoilers, you see Darth Maul getting killed by Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine in the series Rebels. So we've seen the start of Darth Maul. We've seen him like killed in the Phantom Menace and then brought back in the Clone Wars, because according to Luke Skywalker, nobody's really dead.
Oh, somehow he returned.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
I think that was then the first blip on the last port machine. Was like,
I think one of the biggest crimes that the new regime, and Kathleen Kennedy's probably got a lot to answer for on this one, there was no plan. They started off with a soft remake of A New Hope, or Star Wars as the hardcore would call it, and then they didn't really know where to go with this, so they gave it to a person that just wanted to make what he wanted to make and had absolutely no idea what to do with it and didn't care where they went with it afterwards. And The Last Jedi could have easily been the final film of the trilogy. It would have been a piss poor final film, but it was pretty much a piss poor middle film. And I think that's the biggest problem with it. And I think the other biggest problem is that there was a final film written and was going to be directed by Colin Trevorrow, which looked a hell of a lot more intriguing than what we actually got. So bringing J.J. Abrams back in and having him co-write the film just goes to show that the guy can't write. He might be able to direct, but he can't write.
When you buy something as big as Star Wars, you almost have to treat it like a business, in that you have projections and a business plan. You know, if you multi-billion-dollar company, you would expect there to be a 5-year plan. This is year 1, this is year 2, this is year 3. This is exactly what we're going to do in those years. And I've been involved with big companies. I know this is how they operate. And it is an entertainment industry, which is not the same. It's not applicable in that same way. But when you're talking something as big as Star Wars, you have to have a very clear through plan, especially if you're going to have multiple media, which are all interconnected, because it's one of those franchises where everything affects everything else.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful. So to only be 3 or 4 films in and already have lost all your threads because you can't keep track of what's happened, because you've put that director and you've taken him out, this, that, and the other. It's not hard. It can't be hard, can it, for 4 films to be written cohesively? So you've got Rogue One, and then you've got the new trilogy. How do you go so wrong in 4 films? It can't be that difficult, surely.
They haven't done another film since The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, because they believed shit bounced, didn't it? Shit the bed on it. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And they probably put themselves in a corner with it. Well, what do we do now? Because it's like, it was a turd, wasn't it?
For me, The Mandalorian was the perfect way to kind of give the franchise a bit more life. And they should have kept The Mandalorian completely away from the Skywalker saga. They should have just had him go off doing his own thing, having adventures. And I always saw that the Mandalorian should have been a bit more like MacGyver. Like every week he gets like trapped and he has to use his brains and stuff to get out of it, or like the A-Team where he has to build something to get out of it. It should have been a bit of a throwback to those kind of 70s and 80s action series. And the thing is, the first series in particular kind of evoked kind of feelings of spaghetti westerns, and that's exactly how it should have been. It should have been like a Wagon Train, or it should have been like Rawhide or something like that. That's the blueprint was already there. And they decided to mess with that blueprint and try and draw people in and say, oh, look at this new shiny thing we've got. It's Luke Skywalker, or it's Arseholker, or it's Boba Fett, who clearly died in Return of the Jedi. The other issue that they kept doing is they kept announcing things. Like we're announcing Rogue Squadron, or they're announcing the Rey film, and then all of a sudden they cancel Rogue Squadron and they cancel the Rey film. I'm pretty happy that they ended up cancelling the Rey film, because I don't think anybody was invested in that character. There's no arc to her story.
Well, and Mary Sue.
Mary Sue. And I feel that the problem is Kathleen Kennedy was like a child with a shiny toy. She's like waving it around and look at this, but she didn't know what to do with it. There was no plan.
I mean, this encapsulates what I'm saying. There are two Luke Skywalkers post Lucas, right? At the end of The Force Awakens, Luke Skywalker is not the same Luke Skywalker who's in The Last Jedi. The tonal shift in that what's meant to be the same scene is shocking. So you know the bit where he throws a lightsaber. I've never known in the first 30 seconds the film was going to be that shit, because that was a terrible. Who let him do that? So the end of that first film. Yeah. So the end of that Force Awakens film where she turns up and shows a lightsaber, Mark Hamill's acting is so good in the end of Force Awakens, because it feels like there's a multitude of emotions going on. Like, God, I wish no one had found me, but oh my God, my lightsaber. You can see it. It's a brilliant bit of acting.
He was thinking what we were all thinking, like, how the hell did you get that? And that was never addressed. Even though that little alien lady who owned the bar said that's a story for another time, and that story never got concluded.
I mean, that was a really good hook. So I couldn't, I was still a bit pissed off that they wasted Luke in that first film, just having him show up at the last second. But by the time it finished, I was like, oh, it's Luke Skywalker is back. And then we waited 2 or 3 years for that next film, and then that scene happened. We threw the lightsaber over his shoulder. We knew we were in trouble then. If you were there at that time watching that film as it came out, I think, did we go the first night to watch it?
Yeah, both first and second films. I don't think we went first night to the third one.
No, we didn't. He tossed it over his shoulder, and it takes you out of it, because it's written so completely differently that if you're watching them back to back, you'd be like, what's just happened? What's happened in that 8 seconds to completely flip his character? And I think even Mark Hamill publicly said, I hate what you've done. This is not Luke Skywalker. I'm phrasing it badly. I can't remember exactly.
I don't agree with the choices you're making for this character, but I'll get on with it and do the job. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing a bit.
Yeah. But that's my memory of it too. He went out like a bitch in that film, didn't he? I mean, he never waved the lightsaber in that film. Snoke. I mean, that was pathetic as well, because they built him up. But then it was like director number 2 said, oh, no, forget that. And then JJ comes back and, oh, God, what are you going to do now? And it feels like they're against each other. But the reason I say there's maybe 3 Luke Skywalkers then is the Luke Skywalker we got in The Mandalorian is the Luke we wanted, right? Is the Jedi.
Yeah, stoic.
And coming in to save the day, the hero. I was over the moon at the time, because I was like, finally, Luke done right. But this shouldn't be happening in the same sort of 2 or 3 year period. And I feel like when I reflect back a couple of years later, I'm a bit annoyed that it was a bit of a cheap trick to pull him out the bag just to get people. It worked because we're still talking about it, but it sort of defined the show a little bit now. So really, The Mandalorian is just another sub-story of the Skywalker saga, which is not where you want it to be. And to go back full circle, I'm really annoyed that you've got this version of Luke, Force Awakens version of Luke, all of 8 seconds, and then The Last Jedi Luke. How do you get one character so totally different across these different things, and the same, and it's all under the same umbrella. These aren't different companies; it's the same company with one person at the top saying yes or no. How do you get that so wrong? I really don't know.
No, and I've got to agree with you there. It's like pulling on the threads to see what unravels, but it ends up being like Dougal's jumper on Father Ted, so it's all gone. They started off by saying that there was going to be a film every year over a certain period of time. So we had the first sequel film, and then we had Rogue One. Great start. I thought Force Awakens was what it needed to be, because what annoys me about this franchise is that everybody hated the prequels. I absolutely detest the prequels. For me, you'll probably disagree with me. I know you like Revenge of the Sith. I absolutely hate the prequels, to the point that where I would rather watch the Plinkett reviews of the prequels.
They are better than the actual films.
Yeah,
they're better.
I just don't feel that, and I've mentioned this before on my video, The Good, the Bad and the Disney, that just because something is now shit, what was shit before doesn't get better. It's still shit. That's just how it is for me. You can't, it's like putting sprinkles on it and thinking, oh, look at that turd, it's nice and sparkly.
You can't polish a turd, can you?
No, you can't. And I think with that, it's. I know you and I can talk all night about the negatives around Star Wars and what it was for us and where it's gone. We've grown up with the original trilogy, and we're going to get people who'll be like, "Oh yeah, the OT geeks and stuff." Yes, I'm an OT geek, and I'm proud of it. And what this franchise has become since then is it's not even a shadow of itself. Kathleen Kennedy, she's just absolutely messed this up. She's the Alex Kurtzman of Disney, and that is saying something. But do you reckon that those two kind of get together on a monthly basis and just like brainstorm? How are we going to fuck up the franchise?
Well, I think we should save that for a future video because we've got theories about that, haven't we? I think if we're going to maybe talk about the future of Star Wars then and what they can do, we've mentioned it a few times, haven't we, Colm, where Andor was so good and so sort of clinical in its execution and what it did and how it was made. I mean, it deserves to be a series on its own. You know, it doesn't need the rest of Star Wars. It's that good. If you've never seen Star Wars before, it's still a brilliant watch. They had a huge hit on their hands, and there's someone in there saying, we need more of that. But how do you make more of that when you've got Skeleton Crew? And are they making us... Is Acolyte dead? That's dead now, isn't it?
Oh, the tone is all over the place because the Skeleton Crew was clearly aimed at younger audiences. And then within the space of, God, it must have been less than a year, you had Skeleton Crew, you had The Acolyte, and then you had Series 2 of Andor. And all three series are completely different. So how do you... Not one of those three seems like it's from the same franchise. They're totally, completely different.
You're right. They do feel like they're from different parts of entertainment almost. They don't belong together. So, and it's not to say that there isn't room for different types of stories in Star Wars because the galaxy is so vast, but it gives you whiplash. So, you know, you finish Andor and it's this spy thriller almost, isn't it? And it's a different kind of thing that we're used to from Star Wars, but it's an evolution that is welcome. So we've had all the flashy lasers, but now we've got the sort of corridor secrets type
the espionage drama.
Yes, which that goes hand in hand because you got to think, well, yeah, that makes sense that to get the plans for the Death Star, there had to have been a lot. And it goes hand in hand and they complement each other. But then you've got the Acolyte, which there was one sequence that was all right where that guy's killing everybody. I thought
it meant the whip lightsaber.
That was pretty cool, but it's but the amount I think this is probably speaking to a wider problem, which is the amount of green screen, and it feels like things have been done on the cheap in a lot of TV shows, and not just Star Wars. And I don't know if the writing's bare thin now. I don't know who's coming up with these shows and things. It feels like people are running around unchecked. So
yeah,
it feels like someone's come up with this idea for the Acolyte and someone's gone, go for it, do whatever you want. But really, it needs someone to be there on the ground to say, look, we're going to let you do 50% of what you want to do, but 50% of it has to at least tie in with other things that we're doing so that it's tonally consistent. And that is the key word, consistent. There has been no consistency. And how do you go forward with that?
Absolutely. And I think just going back to my previous point about those three shows being completely, I mean, they're not even opposites. It's almost feel like they're just complete nothings compared to each other. There's no relation between each one. But to put a positive on that, there's nothing wrong with doing something different within the same franchise. I think the biggest problem is that you've got three things within the same year. So, and I think the biggest problem that we've had with Disney Star Wars, other than the bad writing and the poor direction and the people at the top not knowing what they're doing and a lot of bad actors and really bad visual effects. But other than all of that, it's the oversaturation. There's too much. They're not leaving people wanting more. They're leaving people thinking, I've had enough. I can't be bothered with this. I might go and watch Alien Earth, which is great.
Yeah. And it's a Disney problem, isn't it? So Alien Earth
is Disney as well.
It's on Disney, but I think it's like FX, isn't it, who were making the show. So, but Marvel's the same. They've completely ruined Marvel because I think what they've done is what was something that was special, like Star Wars and the MCU. I mean, the people were salivating, ready for the next MCU film, weren't they, at one time? And you've gone to, it's an onslaught, relentless. And how do there's people at work. Have you watched the latest episode of? Who's got time to watch all these things?
Mm.
And they're stretching it out so thin that each, you're picking the bones out of it to try and find something that's good. So, which is why I call it the Andor problem. When something comes along that's so good, it ruins the rest of it, because we was already accepting how terrible it was, the state of the Star Wars franchise. But when Andor comes along, it's a weird problem to have, because it was so good that it makes you sit up and go, what are you going to do next then? Because
Yeah,
I'm not saying more of the same, because clearly that story's finished now, but it's got to have opened a lot of doors. People want adult, mature stories about Star Wars. Give us some of that. I mean, I don't know who the Acolyte was for. Was it for kids? Was it for? I have no idea, but it
I
was
think
shit
was
for everybody.
kids. I mean, going forwards, there are things in the pipeline. I know that Ryan Gosling's been cast in a I don't know what it's called, Star Wars Starfighter or something.
Might be, yeah.
X-Wing pilot. And I don't know that much about it, because, like I keep saying, we don't do research on this channel because we can't be asked. But there was it Patty Jenkins? Have I got her name right?
Yeah, she the Wonder Woman.
Yeah, she did Wonder Woman. She was set to I don't know if it was a film or a series, but she was set to direct, or I think it was a film. And there was images of her in an X-wing, and then all of a sudden it just got canned. And it's just like, why do they keep doing this? Like I said it earlier, they need to stop announcing things just to cancel them. Just don't announce stuff. Just don't announce it until it's in production. I don't mean pre-production. I mean into filming. As soon as your Ryan Gosling's or your whomever is on set and actually in front of a camera, that's when you should be kind of advertising it to the world, because then there's intrigue. Oh, they're making this now. But the problem is that when did Andor finish? That was earlier this year, May.
Yeah, a few months ago.
We've already got another one on its way for early next year, I guess. I think they just need to have a bit of a space between shows. We've not had a film for a long time, which is fine, but Star Wars is made for the big screen. So they need to be giving us something along those lines in the next couple of years and stop making these TV shows. I would say that, to answer the question of the video, Star Wars isn't dead. Like you say, it's circling the drain. I think it's in its twilight. If you're comparing, like the last discussion we had on this subject, the Star Trek franchise, we concluded that Star Trek is well and truly dead.
Then we're dead.
He's been dead for a long time.
I've been dead before.
And you can kind of draw that line there, and everything after it is fan stuff. I think you can also say the same thing about Star Wars. The only problem with Star Wars is that there are these little like moments of life, like the corpse is shaking, and there's an expel of fart or something, air, and you know what I mean, don't you? It's just like, there's something going on inside. It's like rigor mortis hasn't set in yet, so we're going to just keep going until it does.
Yeah,
but I feel with Star Wars, this they can still do something with this franchise. I feel so bewildered by how our franchises are just going down the pan, like Star Wars, Star Trek, MCU, Indiana Jones, all of this. It's like, I think it was Aristotle that once said, "Stop fucking up our franchises."
When did you say that, mate?
Sometime.
I thought you were going to come out with. I thought, wow, this is really unusual for our channel. This is we turned a corner.
No, we have walked into the wall more like.
You know what headcanon is? You heard that phrase before.
Oh yeah, I've heard you talk about headcanon so many times, and you're very good at explaining this.
Yeah, so headcanon to me is you pick and choose something from a franchise, and that is what is real to you. My headcanon, it starts with the Star Trek movies. Star Trek, the original series, are so far removed from the rest of what follows. But from Star Trek 2 through to probably the end of Voyager, I call that headcanon. That's Star Trek. Everything either side is whatever you like. But
I enjoy the original series of Star Trek. There's some really good episodes especially in the second season.
Yeah, it's good, but it's so different. It's a bit like what we've been talking about between, tonally and the difference between the Acolyte and Andor. So, but I would say that you call it DNA. The DNA from Wrath of Khan through to the end of Voyager. That feels like one thing.
Yes, I agree.
My headcanon is Star Trek ended there. Anything that comes after is a bit like a fan film. And I'm like that with Star Wars, where Star Wars started with A New Hope. I'm willing to accept the prequels because at least it's by the same person and you can sort of see what he was trying to do.
I think the Clone Wars make a better run. You can just cut out all of the 3 films and just watch the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I suppose you can. And then, this is where my headcanon comes in now, and I start getting picky. I like Rogue One.
I do.
Normally, I don't like prequels, but there was a story to be told there where, as soon as I heard the premise, which is how they got the Death Star plans, I thought, yes.
It's the opening crawl to Star Wars.
Yeah, that's brilliant. They found a really good hole that needed to be filled there in terms of a story. And I'm willing to take some parts of The Mandalorian, Andor. I think that's it. I could watch those together and call that a day and say that is Star Wars. I'm not willing to accept the new trilogy as being proper Star Wars. I just can't. To me, in my headcanon, Luke went on to found a new Jedi Academy. They all live happily ever after. None of this. It's like a fever dream. It's not real. It's like Dallas. It was all a dream.
It feels like Howard in Neighbours coming back. Do you remember he's supposed to have died falling off a cliff and he came back to life or something?
Or Dirty Den.
Or Dirty Den, yeah. This is what Star Wars is.
I mean, Dirty Den, that is someone having a fever. Dirty Den died years ago. That is not, that can't happen. That's bullshit. And this is bullshit. This what they did with those characters was add. You've got so if I'm in charge and we've got them back, we've got all the original cast back. What do you want to do? Let's fuck it up. Let's fucking shit on it.
Let's not give them any screen time together.
Oh, I mean, you go back to that moment. I mean, before they even messed up between the films, in The Force Awakens, you have this moment where, they killed Han off. It's a choice. I wouldn't have done it, but then that moment where Leia walks straight past Chewie, console Rey, who just met.
She went over to Rey. Why? Rey shouldn't even frigging know Rey.
And I'm getting a bit worked up now, but I remember watching it going, what the fuck was that? Who's written that scene? You know what? If you're going to do it, just don't have Chewie there. Just don't have him there. If you really want to have that moment. But for her to walk straight past, who's meant, they've got 30 years of history at this point. I mean, that is a slap in the face to people like us. To the point of, did they do it on purpose? Because if not, that is negligence.
Do you know what that is?
Scale.
That is. I mean, Lawrence Kasdan wrote that film with his son, so I'm going to put it down to the fact that it was his son who wrote that scene. I might be wrong, but what that is the old guard ignoring what the old guard wants and saying, no, we're going to the new. This is the new people. These are the people you have to care about. We're not bothered about Chewie now. We're going over to Rey. Don't know Rey, but we're going to like her, whether you like it or not.
That scene encapsulates a lot of what we're talking about. So you've got this scene. Leia walks past Chewie to console Rey.
Switch this on.
Do it. Now you're telling me that of all the thousands, and there will be thousands of people involved in the making of that movie, didn't someone put their hand up and say, why is that happening? Why she just walked past Chewie? How does that get to that point where it's viewed by my eyes in the cinema without anyone having checked it first? So Last Jedi, hated it. But JJ coming back, I thought, I do like JJ, and I thought there's a chance, but then you've got that whole dagger shit. How's that work? Then the Death Star, I saw that Death Star obliterate. It was obliterate. There was nothing left. But yet the throne room is conveniently accessible to anyone who could just walk up to it. Someone's had a great idea and nobody in the room's gone, well, that's stupid. Everyone's just gone, yeah, let's do it. I know I say this all the time, but I think we could have done a better job. Genuinely.
I agree. I mean, I put in, I feel similar about the prequel trilogy, and I put in a video, The Good, the Bad, and the Disney, and I extracted that and kind of expanded on it on another video of how I would have done the prequels. And we could do something similar with the sequel trilogy, how we could have put that together and how we could have done that better. But I think the better way of doing it was just to kind of leave it alone, unless you're going to do something vastly different, but keep those core characters. Those 3 characters, they are the reason why people watch Star Wars. for Han, Luke, and Leia. They're the reason why we enjoyed Star Wars. Each one of them had their own kind of thing that they put towards it that kind of kept us invested. Another thing that kind of got me was that Rey was elevated to be this character that everybody has to love, whether you like it or not. And then Finn, he was given a bit of a raw deal in the second and third film. He had a story thread in the second film that actually went nowhere. It got to the point where, all right, we've frigged this up now. It doesn't really matter. We should have just stayed on the ship. It would have made no bearing. His whole thing in that film had no bearing on the ending of the film. It just didn't make any sense for him. It was almost let's give Finn something to do. We're going to have no resolution on a story thread.
Yeah.
That was bullshit.
I mean, whether you like it or not, in that first film, Rey and Finn, you could see the arcs coming out. There was a thread. There was a story for each one of those.
Good chemistry together as well, I thought.
Yeah, they did. Film. And I think, was it on the cards that Finn might become a Jedi? And they had this whole thing set up with Rey's lineage. And it feels a bit like in the second film.
Oh, that lineage stuff, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it was a complete non-story. And then they got to the second film, and that guy went, "Lol, we're not doing any of that." Finn,
it sounded just like Rian Johnson, and said, "Hey up, this is shite.
We're not doing any of that. I tell you what, let's do this instead." And then it gets back to JJ, and it's like a hot potato, hot turd. It's come back. Oh, what? This is not. And he's trying to course correct, and it feels like he was trying to undo stuff that done in that last film. I've always said this. This is why Star Wars pisses me off, because it's so inconsistent. That scene in the second film, I'm just generally ranting now, just whatever pops in my head, I'm sorry. That scene in the second movie where they go to, I will keep wanting to say warp speed, but hyperspace, and she cuts through that ship, and it's like a really cool cinematic moment. Yeah. And that was one of those things where that guy sat down in a room and told everyone, "This is the scene," and everyone goes, "That sounds brilliant." Not, you know that meme with the guy in the boardroom puts his hand up, says, "What about?" and he gets thrown out the window. That'd be me. Yeah. That'd be me, because I'd be like, "Well, why didn't they do that to the Death Star?" And then the Stone Cold Steve Austin style, he gets window smashes and I'm chucked out. But that's exactly what's missing, is someone with some common sense behind the scenes to say, "Look, we're not doing that. We're not doing that." Maybe they did know, but they didn't care, and perhaps they just thought, "Oh yeah, whatever. Just do the hyperspace thing. It'll look cool."
Intelligence being insulted, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. I said that on the Star Trek video. I feel like my intelligence is constantly being insulted by these series.
But they think we're either too stupid, or they don't care what you and me think. They don't care about consistency or keeping things in line with what's come before. They just care about the moment, what happens in this film, and it's stuff like that. Let's just do the warp speed thing. Maybe someone did put their hand up. Look, whatever. Maybe 2 or 3 people on YouTube will mention it, but people won't care. It'll be really cool, and people will talk about it. It'll be a moment.
And for those people defending the prequels, I don't care. Because when I made my videos discussing the prequels as such, I got a few messages from people, "No, you don't know what you're talking about," and blah, blah, blah. If you love the prequels, fine, great. You're a different generation to me. People love what they love. Now, I can accept people liking the prequels. I can't accept people liking the Acolyte.
No. In storytelling, you have plot and you have story. And it's like that in Star Wars and George Lucas even did this. I think he had this vision of the whole story, but he realized, well, actually, the most interesting part is where Darth Vader is trying to hunt down Luke Skywalker. That's the plot, and that's what makes for a good story. Now, just because the story is there doesn't mean you have to go back and revisit and tell it. So in the same way that Lord of the Rings, there's loads of history, but do people care as much? I mean, you got the Rings of Power. I'm not sure how well that's doing. Is it? I don't know. I actually don't know how popular that is. But I know for me personally, I'm struggling with it because the most interesting part of that tale has been told. And I feel that way with Star Wars. So for him to go back to the well and tell this story about how Darth Vader grew up is, in hindsight, did we need that? When you look at it as a whole, the story only really, for me, gets good when it gets to A New Hope. And that's because that's where the plot begins. This is where the plot begins. But do you see what I'm getting at? I've sort of rambled a bit there. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me. I think to summarize that and probably to step on your point a bit more, there are people here working under this umbrella within Disney that don't understand those two main points. They don't understand story. They don't understand plot. They don't know how to create plot from story. They don't know how to structure that plot within that story. And the story that they're trying to tell is a rehash of the story that's been told many a time. And I know people will argue that the original Star Wars film was taken from many different stories itself, like Seven Samurai and the Magnificent Seven and the Searchers. And yeah, George Lucas drew from an awful lot of places of inspiration. But just because you can draw from inspiration, you can see those links to that inspiration, doesn't mean you can't do it. But redoing what we've had before is laziness. Give the fans what they want.
Yeah.
Don't just sack the fans off and try to bring different fans in or new fans in because you've got this idea and this is going to be aimed at that particular person. There's a fine line between pandering and delivering, in my opinion. You don't have to pander to the original fandom. You just have to give us compelling stories. It's not science fiction, it's science fantasy. And with fantasy, you can do so many different things. I'd argue that Andor wasn't science fantasy, it was science fiction. That delved further into the science fiction and the drama of it and stuff was excellent. But as we were saying that the 3 different series are completely tonally different, you can do something of a different tone and step into a different type of genre within this, but it still needs to be well linked. But you just need to space it out. We don't need a series coming out in January and another one comes out in March and another one comes out in October. We don't need that because we're bored of it. It's oversaturation. It's like, I can't be doing with it anymore. So for me, Star Wars is still very much alive, but it really does need... It needs something to, inject some life into it.
This is going to bring it home now, and I think this sort of everything will come under the umbrella of this, what I'm about to say. So in the 70s, Star Wars was a labour of love. A man had a vision. He had a story he wanted to tell. Everyone involved in that film did the best job they could possibly do, and Star Wars was born. Then you've got what came after. And I think while it was in George's hands, it was definitely a franchise that had a vision, and he did it because he loved it. And, he made a lot of money along the way, but I think he wanted to tell a little story. Yeah, just a little bit, just a smidge of money. But he did what he wanted to do, and he wanted to tell a good story, and that's what came of it. Since it's been sold, it's now a product. And whether we like some of these shows or not, I think what goes on behind closed doors is they don't really care if people sort of get that much enjoyment out of it from show to show. It's about money. It's about making money. The Acolyte, they probably thought, yeah, it'll piss some fans off, but it's a product. It's a spreadsheet. If we push X out and then look at Y, and then this is why they're ruled by committee. So they're doing it by numbers where, some of these things getting cancelled because they probably didn't test well with audiences. So, well, that's not going to make as much money. So let's shelve that one and let's do this thing over here. People will watch it. We'll get money from it. And that's something special has been lost, where Star Wars is no longer a fun franchise made for the right reasons. It's now a product. So is the MCU, and it's just put on in front of you for you to watch, pay money for Disney Plus, and they'll keep slopping it out because we keep eating it.
I completely agree. And I think that's probably the best way to put it. And my very final thought on this is that Star Wars has become the very thing that George Lucas always fought against. He always fought against the studio system. And Star Wars is the epitome of a franchise run by studio committee. And that was, whether you like the prequels or not, you obviously know my opinion on the prequels. At least it was created by a man that knew what he wanted to do, and he was his own entity. He didn't have someone above him saying, you need to do this. There was no committee interfering and saying, you need to do that. And that's what I admired most about George Lucas. He is a very shrewd businessman. But what Star Wars has become is something that is, for me, is very much alien to what it was that George Lucas created.
I wonder if he regrets selling it.
It's not like he needed the money.
No, but I mean, if it's his life's work, and we know he cared so much about it, and I would like to think he regrets selling it. How can you be proud of what's come after that? And you know, maybe that's where my headcanon comes into it, because you have to really pick and choose. But it's a shame. It's a shame. It's not beyond salvage, though. It's a ship that's got holes in it, and it could go. But if they can do more quality shows like Andor, there's a chance.
I think that's probably where we will end things for now. What are your thoughts on Star Wars as a whole? Are you enjoying the franchise under the Disney banner? Are you disappointed with where it's gone? Did you like The Acolyte? And if you did, fair enough to yourself. But, you know, are you fans of the prequels? Do you think the prequels were far better than what we've had since Kathleen Kennedy and Disney took over? Just let us know in the comments. Right, so I think we'll call it a night there. We'll come back to this another time, but I think there's been a lot of points made there, which I think ignites a lot of discussion. So please do interact. Put some comments in the comments for the comments, and we'll comment on your comments. Stop watching our Butterfly Effect short and watch this video instead.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you on the flip. I've been Colm from the Critical Cinema Club.
I've been Sean.
We'll see you in the next video.
May the Force be with you.
Oh, wow. How did they do that? I don't care.